Hello, let's get started by looking at 8A Learning Target 3, which requires students to analyze the specific parts of an author's text. So the student is essentially looking at rhetorical questions, facts, statistics, and quotations and explaining. That's the type of analysis they're doing. They're explaining the author's purpose for using these specific tools. The directions require the students to review the dialectical journal's left-hand column in order to see which rhetorical device or fact or statistic, etc., that the author used. And this comes from the article that you will have already read with the students. And then on the right-hand side, they're given sentence stems that will help them to complete their analysis in a complete sentence. This box is a list, it's not exhaustive, but it's a list of specific verbs that the students could utilize in order to complete their thoughts so that they have a little help. They have their sentence stems and they also have a word bank. So let's take a look at number one. This is one of the questions that you will model with students. Based on how your students do with analyzing specific parts, because it's not our first time. If you think you need to do more than one, you could possibly model 1 and 3 because you want to model two different types of rhetorical devices or a rhetorical device or a fact in order to give a variety of example responses. So let's take a look at the rhetorical question on the left and the sentence stem on the right and complete an analysis or an explanation for the rhetorical question. What does it take to be a good parent? So in my mind, I am thinking that the author doesn't necessarily want me to write the answer down, but he wants me to think about the characteristics of a good parent. It's kind of like a KWL, so to speak. So the author wants you to identify what you already know about being a good parent. So I will go up to my bank of words and see if the author is wanting to do one of these things. No, the word that I would use would be to reflect. So in order to complete my stem, I'm going to start with reflect. The author essentially causes the reader to reflect on his prior knowledge in order to engage the reader based on his prior knowledge. Whenever we can make connections to what the author is talking about, we're definitely more engaged, and as a result, we're more invested in what the author has to say. So let's take a look at number 3. The fact that's being utilized here is put here for a reason. Let's look at the fact. These patterns hold around the world. When people in 50 countries were asked to report their guiding principles in life, the value that mattered most was not achievement, but caring. So the author tells us that there were people from 50 countries, and he told us that for a reason. What would be the main reason that the author included a fact about people being polled, not just in the United States, but in 49 other countries around the world? The author definitely wanted us to realize, or he wanted to emphasize the fact that caring as a value is something that is universally important. So when I go up to the word bank, I'm able to see that he definitely wanted to point out, or he wanted to emphasize or highlight. Any of those would be appropriate, but I believe I'm going to go with highlight. So the author wanted to highlight caring as a universal trait, one that's valued in places across the world, not just here in the United States. Now you're ready to move into the whole group portion of the dialectical journal, where you allow the students to turn and talk and do cold calls after they've had the opportunity to look at the rhetorical question for number 2. If you'd like, you could do a couple of whole group. Again, it just depends on where your students were the last time. You did explaining or analyzing specific parts of the text. So you could work on 2 and 4 as a whole group. You could look at 5 and 6 with partners. And then 7 and 8 will be your assessment of whether or not students are able to analyze or explain specific parts of the text independently. If they can do that proficiently with 7 and 8, then they're ready to rock and roll toward enrichment. If they're unable to accurately or appropriately respond to 7 and 8 by explaining logically or reasonably, then you're looking at intervention. And of course, we can talk about that in planning on Tuesday. Thank you so much for hanging in there. If you have any questions, please let me know. Have a good one.